in my deepest prayer, really hope that we learn to listen. I want more than anything in the world for us to live with love and respect and dignity for all. And that includes not just human beings, it's all living beings, for us to live with respect.
The simple truth is that the children are the future. Choosing a charity that's going to nourish that light and really focus on them as the future felt like a really integral part of this whole project and this whole vision.
Each Life Sacred project is a reminder that art can build bridges, that empathy is still possible. I love how it brings together voices from different backgrounds, Jewish, Arabic, Western, Eastern, and it holds them all in one space of reverence. And to me, that's really extraordinarily powerful. It's a vision of what's still possible.
Welcome, friends, old and new, to all that we are. If you want to come together for moments of presence with us, please do join the rhythm, where we meet each week live for short and beautiful meditations that offer gentle, consistent anchoring for your nervous system, your soul, and your sacred activism. You can drop in or come to all of them through our membership, where you can dive into our library of practices and resources. You can find your rhythm through the link in the show notes. What we have for you here is a very special episode where many voices have been lovingly woven together into a collective prayer. Each Life Sacred was born from an ache to turn the pain from witnessing 2 years of genocide into action. It is a collaboration of 22 musicians who have come together on one album to raise urgent funds for War Child, a charity providing emergency aid, protection, and psychological care to children living through war and conflict. We have shared the link to donate to the crowdfund in the show notes. The contributing artists to Each Life Sacred include Anouska Shankar, Johnny and Lily Flynn, Chantress Saber, Sam Garrett, Danit, Ayla Schafer, Sam Lee, Vika Molova, Matthew Barley, Nick Barbachano, Charlotte Mabon, Ayla Nerero, Little Whale, Naomi Greene, Olivia Fern, Taz Babiker, Alex Forster, Ripples Collective, and Yakov and Susanna Darling Khan. Each Life Sacred is more than an album. Every note carries the hope that these children's futures may be rebuilt, their lives restored, and that we might all learn to live in a world where compassion, respect, and love can prevail. In this collaborative podcast, you will first hear from Anouska Beckwith and Charlotte Mabon, who are holding the creative vision of Each Life Sacred. Anouska is a multidisciplinary artist, creative director, and fine art photographer based in Somerset, the UK. Her work bridges art, activism, and mysticism, exploring the deep bond between nature and the feminine. Charlotte is a singer-songwriter based in Devon in the UK, whose presence is carried through a voice woven with devotion, soulfulness, and subtle grace. She wrote the song Each Life Sacred, which began this project. Then you will hear from some of the beautiful people who have contributed to the album, so as not to take up too much time here so that you can listen to them. You can find their full biographies and links to their works in the show notes. Ayla Schafer is a multilingual world folk singer-songwriter and visionary musical artist. Kieran King is head of humanitarian programming at War Child, which works in 13 countries to protect, educate, and stand up for the rights of children affected by conflict. Taz Babiker is a Sudanese-British singer-songwriter based in Devon. His music bridges Arabic and English influences. Matthew Barley is an internationally known cellist, improviser, and artistic director of Between the Notes. Naomi Greene is a French-American singer-songwriter and harpist. Johnny Flynn is a singer, composer, musician, and actor who has released 5 albums, including The Moon Also Rises, written with Robert Macfarlane. Nick Barbachano, who has dedicated much of his life to building community through ritual, music, prayer, and celebration. Olivia Fern, a singer-songwriter touching on themes of longing, loss, and connection to the earth. Yakov Darling Khan, the co-founder of Movement Medicine with his wife Susanna, and author of Jaguar in the Body, Butterfly in the Heart. Anika Nixdorf, a German-English multidisciplinary artist based in Devon, working intuitively across disciplines, exploring transformation, spirituality, and the feminine. Lauren Noah, known as Little Whale, a US Sweden-based ceremonial musician and recording artist. Petra Palumbo, a homeware designer, celebrated for her distinctive approach to pattern, color, and storytelling. And last but not least, Leor and Souli from Ripples Collective, a group of Palestinian and Israeli non-violent activists, artists, and heart-led humans working together in collective strength and love to embody another possibility. You can listen to them on episode 230 of this podcast on the themes of sacred activism, liberation, and peace to hear more about their journey. There are 4 songs woven through this episode, which are all part of the album that you receive through the crowdfund. These are Each Life Sacred by Charlotte Mabon with Ayla Schafer, Yura by Matthew Barley and Vika Malova, Children of the Earth by Nick Barbachano, and Tonglen by Little Whale. We hope that you enjoy this beautiful tapestry called Each Life Sacred, the power of art, music, and hope, and that this stirs and inspires something deep in you that leads us towards a more beautiful future for all. Welcome to All That We Are, with me, your host, Amisha Tala Oak. On this show, we explore the weave between activism, the sacred, creativity, and regeneration, the spaces where our inner and outer worlds dance. From healing trauma to nature connection, to new technologies, to ancient wisdom, it's time for us to move beyond silos and into an integrated way of being. Every one of us has ideas and personal experiences to share that can lead us to a more beautiful future. Despite the challenges we face as a global community or the pressures we meet in our daily lives, when we stop and dare to listen, to ask ourselves the big questions, and to share what we are already doing and envisioning, we create the futures of our wildest dreams, and we begin to embody all that we are becoming, and all that is possible. Anouska and Charlotte, it's a real honor to be here with you and to share more about this beautiful project that you've created and the ways in which you've gathered your community in order to share this prayer. And we always start the podcast by asking the question, what are the futures of your wildest dreams? I would love for you to answer that from a place of where this stirring has come from.
Thank you, Amisha. We're deeply grateful to be here today. And I would say that I never really thought of myself as an activist. I've very much been a creative all my life in different forms. And over the last 2 years, witnessing what we all have has put a fire in my belly that I can't put out. There are many people who live their life in immense privilege, myself included. And you think because it's not happening next door to you, that it doesn't affect you. And I think the more I deepen my spiritual practice, the more I realize the fine threads of the interconnectedness that we all are one family. And we've really lost our way in such a deep cut. For me, becoming a mother and carrying life for 10 months and then looking at the world that I'm leaving behind for her and her, hopefully her children's children, I feel deep grief and rage about that. For my own personal journey, Charlotte and I and Ayla Schafer, at the same time, were all having a deep awakening at the atrocities we were witnessing, and we didn't really know what to do with it because we were all mothers, and obviously there are very brave people who are going, to Gaza, who are going on flotillas. But for me, I have to be with my child at this present moment, as do they. And for us, it was, what do we do other than posting and sharing and going on protests or boycotting? And for a long time, there wasn't necessarily an answer, but we all shared this collective grief. And then Charlotte was given a song, and she then wrote Each Life Sacred, and she asked Ayla to be on the song. And then she asked me if I would do the EP artwork for it. And that was where the seed came from. And then essentially we felt that it wasn't just one song, and we had such an array of incredible musicians and artists that we knew. And Charlotte decided that we should do an album. And literally within 6 weeks, we contacted mainly friends, but some who were, people I admired. The immediacy of, yes, I'd love to be involved, thank you so much, was quite shocking, because it has been such a polarized subject. And so many people have stayed silent and not felt brave enough to make a stance. So that is where this project was born from my perspective. I'm sure Charlotte has a different viewpoint, because obviously she was the one who wrote the song and came up with the project. But it's been a real privilege to work with her and to share this prayer and this vision. And I hope we do many more together.
Thank you, Anouska and Amisha. Yeah, a real pleasure to be here. Well, I think music for me, more than anything, is a way to be able to face and to feel. And that's how songs come to me. They generally come from places of where I'm really moved. Often it's grief. And definitely in this instance, it was grief. And so the song, when I was watching these images and, this whole sort of, at the beginning of this unfolding of this awful situation that was so harrowing, I felt very alone with it. And it was in my grief that I started to put it into music. And then this song came, Each Life Sacred. And it turns it into a prayer, and it turns it into something that every time I feel the grief, I can hear the music, or every time I hear the music, I can feel the grief. But what it does is it gives me a way to connect. And that's the gift of music for me. And I think the thing that was so powerful about this, it was just the immensity of the feeling that I was having. From that place, I reached out to Anouska, and we set up a little support group, actually, because again, it was just a lot to feel alone in our houses, in our privileged lives, so distant from what we were seeing, and yet it was on our phones every single day. So feeling very connected, but feeling very separate. And somehow in creating these threads of connection through friends here and through community here, it made it, I wouldn't say it made it more bearable, but it just gave a way to share it. And in some way, actually, that does make it more bearable, that we're not facing it alone. And I think that has been the power of this project, was that I knew that when I was ready to record the song, I didn't just want it to be my voice. So I reached out to Ayla, and she was very open and keen to be involved. And so we sang it together. And then I reached out to Anouska to ask about would she do the artwork? And it was like, wow, this is the kind of building. This is the building of community around something. And then Anouska and I had a meeting with someone from crowdfund.co.uk, because I knew from the beginning that I wanted to make it into a fundraiser of some kind, but wasn't quite sure how to do it. So speaking to Anouska, she said, let's have a meeting. And it was just such an incredibly fertile meeting. We just felt so kind of passionate by the end. It was like we'd sort of lit this fire. And I just had this thought of, it doesn't have to stop at one song. There are so many other people that feel passionately about this. Let's make an album. And it was just incredible, which every person pretty much we asked was a yes. And it just felt like, well, we're building a bigger community, and this little seed that we had is growing naturally. And that's really the prayer, and that was the process. And I just feel incredibly grateful that I made that step of realizing this is the way to stay connected, is to be connected. Yeah.
Thank you. There's a really beautiful lyric in the song, which is about not looking away. And I would love for you to share what that means for you, to look towards and to not look away.
Yeah, so this, in a way, was the most powerful line in the song. And actually, originally, I called the song We Won't Look Away. And it was the part that spoke to me the most, because it felt like that was what I could promise from my separate place, from my place of privilege. You know, I could have just buried my head in the sand. I could have said, this is too painful. I just can't face it. But actually, my heart was breaking for these people, and I didn't want to look away. And yet, yeah, so it was like a commitment, you know. That's what I can do, is that I can stay connected. And it's hard. It's really hard. You know, we have our busy lives, we have our children, we have our everything that happens to us here, and we are so far away, and it's been going on a long time. And so again, it felt like the way of sharing the pain, the way of sharing the process was a way to be able to stay connected as well, because life is diverse and busy, and I can't stay in deep grief every day and function in the way that I'm being asked to function. So I feel like there's also another aspect of it, which is that, you know, having made that commitment, we won't look away, I felt guilty when I did. You know, I have to confess, it wasn't possible for me to carry on life and stay plugged in every day. You know, there have been periods that should have been intense. There have been in periods which, you know, I've taken my kids on holiday, you know, and yeah, so I feel like there's been an element to having made that commitment with that line in the song, that I have also had to face my guilt, because I have looked away. It's been a long time, and it wasn't possible for me in my reality to stay plugged in every day. And so I really, when I came to, you know, there was the original writing of the song, there was a recording of the song, there was the collaborating of the song, you know, the whole process that goes into recording music. And each time that's the line that returns to me. That's what catches. We won't look away. We won't look away. And it's like it really touches me. It really touches me that's what I want to be able to do, is that I want to be able to stay connected to all people. I want to be able to stay connected to suffering. And I want to be able to grow the capacity within myself to be able to hold that without falling into despair, without ceasing to function. And I think my method that enabled me to do it and has enabled me to stay connected is through staying connected to my community and to the people that I know are also really connected. So if I do have a day or a week where I'm in a different world, and I know that Anouska is posting and holding it, and I can reach out to her with a phone call, and somehow it's the community holding that means that I can stay in integrity with that prayer and not feel like I've abandoned that part of myself or abandoned a feeling of duty, or that really I can just stay with the love and stay with the assurance that I am connected.
Anouska, you've been sharing a lot and been really vocal and really present with your social media, and also in the conversations that you've been having in your life and fundraisers that you've organised and co-organised. And I wonder how that process has been for you, both with the inner process of how it's changed how you see the world and perhaps your place within it, and also that meeting of speaking out about something that is really contentious and that is really triggering, and where there's really polarizing views, and how you've held that.
Well, like everything, it's been a huge journey, and I keep kind of looking at it as a bit like I've gone down like Alice in Wonderland's rabbit hole is kind of what it feels like. And essentially, I was brought up with a mother who always really taught me to be fiercely independent and to never shy away from things that were difficult. From a young age, I always felt like authority should be questioned. As a child at school, I never really always believed what I was being told, and I fought against it and rebelled. That rebellious spirit has served me as I've gotten older, and it causes friction. It's definitely not like an easy journey. But essentially, I was brought up with lots of Jewish friends, godparents, and my mother and I both actually wanted to be Jewish. When she was 13, she told my grandparents she wanted to be Jewish. And when I was 13, I told my mum I want to be Jewish. I didn't want a confirmation. I didn't want to go down the Christian route, but Judaism was something that I found really beautiful. And I've had 3 serious boyfriends in my life, and all of them have been Jewish and non-practicing. And my husband, who I married to, has a huge lineage that is connected to Israel. When October 7th happened, we had some friends who were left devastated by what had happened. I had always been told it was complicated. I had been sold the Western lie that of white privilege, it's not really anything to do with us. It's over there, it's separate. And I studied history, and Palestine was not something I was taught about. I was taught about the Holocaust, about the Second World War. I wasn't really taught about what happened in America with the First Nation people. But I knew people in America who had had Standing Rock and had experienced that. And we had people from our spiritual community who were standing in protest about the pipeline with water. And so when October 7th happened, the questioning authority and the narrative I was being told, something inside of me started to question it. And I decided to research it. And I've always been a big fan of Gabor Mate. He was born a Zionist, and I started listening to what he was saying. And then obviously you start unraveling one thread and another one and another one. And then obviously one of my great friends is Misan Harriman, who's been a huge supporter of me and my work. And we've become very aligned. And obviously he is such a powerful voice for the Black community, for the oppressed of all different places, from the Congo to Sudan, Palestine. He's been on the front lines marching with all the people pretty much every protest. And I started really listening to what he was saying and following all the people he was following. And another person was Lisa Marouche, who's, you know, an amazing musician, but turned activist. And I think you've got to start as a white person listening to what people are living that's not your experience, because I've never suffered racism. In Britain, there is this huge wave of fascism that we're experiencing. And somebody who did study history, it's pointing towards what happened with the Second World War, that these people, the far right, are sort of pushing an agenda. And I think for me, what's happening in Palestine and the narrative that we're being taught by the Western media, which is very much one story. Like, I've never read anything about a Muslim mother in Palestine who's lost their child. It's very much one story of the victims of the Hamas terrorist attack at the Nova Festival. And I'm not denying that that is a horrific experience, but I think one has to give a duality of two. And for me, I saw my role in this of just sharing the content that I was witnessing every day for 2 years. It's been really difficult to witness these horrors, things I never thought I would ever see. It's broken me. It's made me devastated to see children homeless, no limbs, these beautiful beings of light and love, and they are somebody's everything, left with nothing. And so for me, it's not a question. It's become my life purpose to be of service of whatever way that can be. And I feel that my love of Judaism has not stopped, but it's definitely brought into question what we as the West are funding and what story we're telling ourselves so that we can sleep at night. And I feel it's really important to do our own education, because what we've all been taught in school and in our history books, in my opinion, is a huge lie. And at the same time of doing all of this, I've had a lot of people who I grew up with, family, friends, find what I've been saying or sharing very difficult and have been extremely abusive. Lots of people have written really terrible things, but to be really honest, I don't care. It's much bigger than me. It's not about me. It's about supporting the people in the world. If you are born into privilege, I believe it's your duty to free other people, to speak out for other people, to protest for other people, to help in whatever way you can.
Thank you for sharing, and this powerful process of reckoning with the world that we live in. We've all been so moved by seeing what's happening with the children in Gaza. And of course, this is for the children of Gaza. We also know that it's bigger than that, and the song is "Each Life Sacred." There are children all over the world that are experiencing atrocity or neglect or challenges. And there's something here that's about understanding more of how all of these systems of oppression work and have worked, and the very recent histories that have created these conflicts and the different colonizations around the world, and this rise of the far right that we're experiencing all over Western countries at this time, and really anchoring into what that means, that each life is sacred, and how we live in a way where we really honor the sacredness of our own lives and our children, and the beauty and freedoms that they get to experience, whilst also holding that grief and the power to do something, recognizing that complexity that we're always living within. And I wonder if either of you have anything that you'd like to share around how you've come to navigate that within your life and your community and as mothers.
Yeah, you've put it so well, even in the question. I feel like I don't know that I could say it better. Something about, for me, is, what is it to honor life? And is it a privilege that that's what we have here, that we have the spaciousness and the comfort that we can look at life and go, wow. But somehow I don't think so. I know what it is to birth a being. And I know that feeling of just looking down in utter wonder and just go, wow, this is life. I remember after I birthed my first child, I was in the countryside in Wales, and I remember walking around and seeing in the fields the cows with the calves and just going, wow, I understand. I understand something that I couldn't have understood before. Life is sacred. Life is so precious and fragile. That's the responsibility as well of becoming a parent. And I feel we're so lucky here that we're not exposed to death daily. Like in some places in the world, they are. Death is a part of life. And whereas here, we can remain quite separate from death. So it's a remembering of Could I even say that moment that we ourselves come onto earth? But what it is to honour life, what it is to recognise that life is sacred. And when I see, images of people with guns, machine guns, just free firing out whoever's in line, whether they're children, whether they're old people, it's just, it's so shocking. It's so shocking to that place that somehow I feel like as a humanity, we do know that life is sacred, and yet what is it that happens to our minds? What is it that happens to what is it in our upbringings and in the narratives we're fed, that we can get to a place where it's more than okay. It's our right, it's our duty to murder and to massacre. And it's just such a deeply wounding place to the human spirit. And coming back to the album, I feel like my prayer with this album is like somehow music can do that for us. Music can remind us, music can take us to that really core place within us where we feel the out-breath, and the place where we can connect and go, wow. Yeah. Coming back to your original question, what's the greater dream? What's the biggest dream? I think it's that we can access that place of original wonder in the sacredness of life.
For me, with Each Life Sacred, I really do believe that. I really feel that we are all family, we're all interconnected, and we've lost our way. And with what's happening in the world, with so much division and polarization, it's really easy sometimes to get sidetracked with your belief system. And I've equally had people who have been on, let's say, the pro-Palestinian side, writing to me about discrediting Israel, or what I, as a daily practice, choose to do is not let hate in my heart, and to remind myself that every single being on this planet has been traumatized in some way. Everyone has an inner child that is hurt. And when we look at all the things that are happening in the world, we repeat history. The oppressed becomes the oppressor. I choose to hold love in my heart for everyone, even though it can be really difficult at times. I choose not to let seeds of hate sit inside of me. I choose not to forget, but to forgive. And that, for me, is a daily practice. I light a candle, I say a prayer for all the beings, including animals and our water and our Mother Earth, that are suffering, because it is all interconnected. The genocides, the ecocides, the femicide, it's all unbalanced, it's all out of whack. And I really believe that the women, the Dalai Lama said it was going to be the women of the world that change the world for the future. And I really believe that women are stepping up, stepping out. We have love, we have compassion, we have empathy in a different way to what the masculine has. And I really believe together as women, we can change the world.
Thank you for that, and for the power of what I really feel in what you've created here is the ignition of love within a community and space within a community to face grief together and to face the ickiness of our own kind of inner privilege and inner trauma, and inner love can come together. And I'm sitting here as somebody that has experienced a lot of racism in my life and continues to, and that has seen and experienced how the epigenetics of colonization and war play out, and that these stories are not so far away, that my parents, for example, were in my grandmother's wombs during colonization still. It's really not that long ago. And then you see how these things play out. And the parents of my beautiful nieces met in Palestine in the West Bank. And that's why we're all in Devon now. And so for me, I feel these stories very lived in my reality. And I also see that we're in this incredible opportunity because we have access to media and to each other's stories in a way that we never have, where we can come to understand our world and the narratives that we live within differently, where each one of us is being really asked to honor the sacredness of life and honor the sacredness of each other's lives. I was reminded recently, and I don't know where these three questions come from, but questions of what makes a beautiful society or a beautiful world. And the questions being, are the children fed? Do the elders feel safe and respected? And do the women feel safe to do their work of nurturing and of bringing the dreams? And I can feel the duality of a world that doesn't honor those things. And also pockets of reemergence of honoring those things and honoring those things in community. And it feels important to speak to the community that has come together to create this album and this offering, and that lives more of those values in the day-to-day, and that is bringing more of that into our world. I wondered if there's anything else you feel in your heart to share around how that experience of community has been for you and for all of our friends listening around the world, how they can maybe create that in their communities and bring more of that honoring, and where that interaction of the spiritual life and the medicine community, as well as that reckoning with privilege and world history and future possibility, where it all comes together.
On a personal journey, I feel that I was really lucky at a quite a young age, which was about 6 or 7. I was in Los Angeles with my mother, and we were staying with a musician called Deborah Anderson, whose father was John Anderson from the band Yes. He had some chiefs from the Lakota tribe staying with him, like they were living on his land. I'd never met anybody quite like these really beautiful people, and they had horses, and we went riding in the canyon. And I remember thinking how exotic, how in touch they were, the way they didn't have saddles, they would literally just, bareback. And I just remember feeling so in awe. That seed of just seeing people who are indigenous to the land, who are indigenous to the connection that so many of us have had stolen, forgotten, stripped away, is something that I feel is the greatest gift that we have as a living memory, that there are these people who are taking care with every moment of their breath, every step they take. They're not taking anything other than it's being reciprocal. I'm not there yet. I have been brought up in a Western way, and it's very difficult to give up all these luxuries because you're taught and conditioned and brainwashed to think that you need all these things. But I feel that by the time I was 23, I was very lucky again to meet an amazing Colombian shaman, and I found the world of plant medicines. And from there, it has been the greatest gift, other than my daughter, of my entire life. I'm extremely aware, again, that these teachings, these medicines, these ways of life have to be deeply respected and honored. And they're not mine. I definitely feel, I think it's the Hopi tribe who say that we're their little brothers. And I think that's something that we all really need to remind ourselves, that we need to learn from all the different indigenous cultures around the world, because we are the blind leading the blind a little bit. And I really, in my deepest prayer, really hope that we learn to listen more, because I want more than anything in the world for us to live with love and respect and dignity for all. And that includes, again, like not just human beings, it's all living beings, for us to live with respect and love.
I think what I really tune into when you ask that question, what can change the world? What came to me was the power of vulnerability. I feel like on my sort of human journey, the thing that changed everything was when I was able to say, I'm not okay, I need help. To say I'm not okay, of course I'm okay, but to be able to access the places of pain and to let the mask down and to open my heart to other people and to trust. And I feel that's where the connection is. And if I imagine a world where I'm imagining Parliament, imagining a rethinking of those meetings where people can speak from the heart, and what does it mean to speak from the heart? To be able to put the mask down and to be honest and to be vulnerable. I think it's ridiculous to imagine that any of us can know as individuals how to make the world a better place. But I feel the power of community and what makes community, I think that's what really touched me and made me think, where did I start to allow community into my heart? And where did I start to allow myself to be able to support others from an authentic place? And that's where the thought of vulnerability comes in. What makes true friendship? It's being able to witness each other in our place where we can say to our friends, could you help me? And can I help you? And just connecting through vulnerability and letting the guard down and taking off the masks, because I feel like we go through life learning behaviours and learning how we're supposed to be and creating coping mechanisms when we experience pain. And when we can really let that go and allow others in and really listen, that's where I feel community begins.
Thank you. And I feel like what you're sharing with this whole album is the power of what happens when you reach out to your community and you invite them into something. And I feel like that's something that everyone here listening can take from this, that if they reach out, if they gather their friends around what they care about the most, that something really powerful and beautiful can happen, and that ripples out into the world, but it also ripples into your friendships and into your children and into the future that you're creating. As we're talking about the human spirit so much in this conversation and that power of each life, it feels important to mention that although we've all been horrified by the violence and the destruction that we've witnessed, that we've also witnessed so much Palestinian resilience and joy and community and solidarity. I know for me, seeing children share the very little that they have with each other and seeing how people that I've been following, they're still here 2 years later, they're still here. They're still there sharing what's happening for them on Instagram, and seeing like Eid feasts in the rubble. Somehow, despite being in such a horrific situation, that power of love and supporting each other and community shines through, and it feels important to mention how much we're all learning from the people of Gaza at this time of how to live and how to love and how to stand together. And I'd love to hear more about War Child and why you've chosen War Child to be the charity that this beautiful album supports.
The simple truth is that the children are the future. One of the things I know that War Child does is that they do trauma care, aftercare, working with trauma. And, you know, when you look at this situation and just how horrific it is, there's this question of how will this ever end? These children are growing up with these memories, and, you know, how does this cycle ever end of violence and hatred and division? And it feels like it's in the care of the children. You know, if the children are receiving some happy memories from this time, or if the children are cared for, if the children's voices are heard, if the children feel empowered, you know, children are full of love, they're full of hope, even the ones living in, you know, these desperate situations, exactly like you just said, you know, still able to share their food, still able to laugh, still able to pick up an instrument and try and learn to play it. You know, there's a real light in children, and it feels like being able to, choosing a charity that's going to nourish that light and really focus on them as the future, felt like a really integral part of this whole project and this whole vision.
Thank you. And I know that it's been really important to you in the weaving of this album to honour the diversity within your community and the diversity of prayer. Can you share a little bit about that, Anouska?
Obviously, the project started with Charlotte and Ayla and the title of the album, Each Life Sacred. And then when Charlotte and I was discussing which other artists, musicians we should be having, obviously we went to people we knew and have prayed with. So for me, one of the first people that we asked was Ripples Collective, who I had discovered and heard about at Medicine Festival. And it's a Palestinian-Israeli peace group that prays and creates music as an act of resistance to harmonize and alchemize the pain and the conflict for the hope of something different. And I was so honored that they said yes, that they would be part of this project. And that was, you know, one of the pillars that we had. And then I thought, who else do we need to be part of this prayer? Who is also somebody that I am very honored to know. And his name is Yaakov Darling Khan, and his wife Susanna, and their son has added to the track. He is an Israeli peace worker as well as a movement medicine practitioner who created it with his wife. And he basically from October 7th was creating his own version of a Hebrew song for the dead for both sides, for the Israelis and the Palestinians. I sat in ceremony with him and I wept at hearing this really deeply beautiful, heartbreaking song, but it felt really important to have it on the album. And he'd never recorded it before because it was something that he did as a ritual every day as the sun rose with his wife. And when I asked him, would you give this prayer, he had to think about it because it's supposed to just be a ritual rather than a live recording. He spoke with Susanna and he came back with a yes. So I felt those two, Ripples and Yaakov and Susanna, were very integral for what we were wanting. And then the next person we went to was Anouska Shankar, who I have been an admirer of for the last 25 years. And she was so gracious to give us New Dawn for the album. And then the next person we asked in terms of creating this diversity was wanting to have Taz Babiker, who is of Sudanese descent, and he went to his father and his grandfather, and the three male generations have written a song specially to close the prayer. So it has felt extremely blessed in many ways. And then we were told yesterday that Chantra Siba will now also create a special song for the album. So it feels like so many people want to be part of creating this prayer of love, compassion, hope, and that feels in itself something very blessed.
As we stand by the sides and you feed us your lies, we won't kneel before this dark throne. As the earth is stained red and still more life is shed, we're praying to go home in our hearts, home with our kin, to a land where we can together begin to learn how to listen, understand what we're given, each life sacred, arisen from love. In this revelation, can we see beyond nation, each life sacred, arisen from love. Love, each life sacred, arisen from love. Love, each life sacred, arisen from love.
I'm Ayla Schafer and I am a musician. I hope that people will feel when they listen to this song, Each Life Sacred, that the medicine of song, being the language of the heart, will allow people to drop into a deeper place within their being, to drop beyond their mind, drop beyond the tension, the trauma, the fears, all of that, and drop into that place of the heart to really feel the grief, to feel that pain that I know every single heart, when it's alive and beating and full, feels the pain of others, feels the pain of this earth, feels the pain of what's happening in the world. I hope that the song will create a gentle softness for people to feel what needs to be felt there, feel that grief. And within that grief, feel that incredible love and knowing and remembering of how profoundly connected we are to one another. That remembering and knowing that there are no borders, there are no separate nations, there is no other, that we belong really to each other. As human beings, we belong to one another, as do we belong to the earth. And in that belonging, that we may see the humanity in the other, remember the sacredness of one another, remember the sacredness of life and the sacredness of our children. Remember that all children are our children, and be touched by this feeling, and that it may awaken that sense of reverence and that sense of hope and that sense of vision for the future, that sense of walking onwards with a clear prayer of what we're calling in, what we stand for, what we believe in, what we wish to see in this world, and that clear sense of how we may, in our very small ways, embody that medicine that we wish for the world, the medicine that is so needed for the world in this time. And that it may start with that feeling inside of our hearts and inside of our beings, and that it may be awakened by that grief and that sadness, but not paralyzed by it, not pulled down into that infinite swamp of hopelessness and despair, but with our eyes opened and our hearts more alive and beating, and full of that great inspiration to be vessels for the light and the goodness for the earth in this time, to find our ways to respond, to take responsibility, to embody our prayers in action. When she invited me to be part of it, it was a time when I had opened myself up very widely and deeply to feel and see and witness the horrors happening in the world. And I was just beyond devastated. I was in a state of such overwhelming grief, despair, hopelessness, quite paralyzing. And it felt like Charlotte invited me. Her invitation was like a hand reaching out to me saying, like, come with me, Ayla. Like, we can do something. We can do this. We can sing this song together. We can sing this prayer. And I haven't personally been able to find my own words or find my own creative voice to write about what I was feeling and what I was witnessing. It felt just too big. I couldn't find that way of expression. And it's like Charlotte gave me a space. She gave me a voice. She gave me a space to give my voice in a way that it felt so right and it felt so true. To sing really from the heart, to sing this beautiful prayer that acknowledges both the pain and the deep truth and the deep essence. It acknowledges and sees and brings hope and inspiration. That there's something really important within this song, this message that I hope that people will take away. The invitation, the call and the inspiration to not turn away, not look away, to not shut down our hearts, to not go numb, to not turn into apathy, to not ignore because it's too painful or uncomfortable or inconvenient. The pain and sorrow that exists in this world, because it's pretty clear that if it is ignored, if it is not seen, if it is not witnessed, it will continue and continue to perpetuate. And it's only by our seeing and by our opening our hearts to actually really feeling what we're seeing that change can be awakened within each one of us, within our lives, our actions, that we can find our way to respond, to take responsibility, to be a walking prayer in action, which is so desperately needed in this time, in all its infinite ways that it is needed, and the infinite ways that each one of us will embody that goodness, that kindness, that love, that change, that medicine that is needed for the change to happen, for there to be peace in all ways, peace in the lands, peace in the hearts of human beings, for there to be a future that is full of hope and balance. So I hope that this song in some way can be a seed inside the hearts of people that will grow inside of their hearts and grow in their lives in small ways and in big ways.
When War Child's country director for the occupied Palestinian territory heard about the ceasefire, Sahar Smoon said, "Stopping the bombs is only the beginning. For right now, people will finally be able to breathe. But for children in Gaza, healing will take years. And that is War Child's plan, that they will be there for these children for years, that they will continue to deliver their biggest response to date, and that they will reach every one of the 1.1 million children who desperately need our help. They are only able to support the children of Gaza and scale up their work because of people like you that donate. So please continue to support and trust in War Child." Here is Kieran King, War Child's head of humanitarian programming, sharing with us how the money raised from Each Life Sacred will support children affected by war.
So War Child is the only specialist humanitarian organisation focused exclusively on children affected by conflict. We work across 15 countries, predominantly in Africa and the Middle East, but also Ukraine and Colombia. And those countries include the likes of Sudan, Uganda, Yemen, Afghanistan, but also the occupied Palestinian territory. And as War Child, we aim to centre our efforts, our programming around our core themes, which are child protection, mental health and psychosocial support, but also education. And we try and create change for children in conflict, predominantly by enabling and supporting partners, national, local organisations to lead in supporting children and youth. Also a focus on evidence-based programming, so interventions for children in conflict, which we know through scientific evidence have an impact and have outcomes that do increase and improve their well-being. We also do a lot of advocacy, so advocating for and with children and our partners to improve local practices and policy that also affects their well-being during and after conflicts. We've been working in Gaza since 2009. During that time, before the current war, developed built a really strong network of national organisations, and are proud to be part of that network. And since the war in Gaza started, we've been working with our partners to provide basic needs for the most acutely affected children, a particular focus on unaccompanied and separated children. We've focused a lot on education, so supporting community learning spaces to make sure teachers are supported in those spaces and that there's also safe spaces for children to learn. So having children in those centres and supporting them there also has enabled us to deliver wide-scale child protection services as well, so identifying specific risks for children and working with other organisations to refer them to relevant services to minimise the impact of the conflict on those children. We also, the core of our programming really centres around mental health and psychosocial support, so individual and group counselling sessions and recreational activities for children to come together in displacement camps after they've been forcibly evacuated from their homes, to participate in games and connect with other children who are also going through the same experiences and suffering the same trauma. And now, since the announcement of the ceasefire, which we, of course, like everyone else, hopes will hold, we are looking to scale up what we're already doing and not changing the format of that significantly, but rather trying to expand the child protection services in particular, while also looking more ahead to system strengthening and working with larger institutions to make sure that as systems and services in Gaza are rebuilt, that mental health and education and child protection are at the centre of that, and that children have a voice in determining what their future looks like.
My name's Taz Babiker. I'm a Sudanese-British singer-songwriter, and I've contributed the Arabic prayer called The Language of Love to the album Each Life Sacred. What really called me to this project was that deep sense of helplessness so many of us have felt watching what's been happening in Gaza. As someone of Sudanese heritage, I've also been watching my own homeland fall into conflict, and that's really been quite heartbreaking too. And there's a kind of grief that comes with witnessing so much suffering. And this felt like a way of responding to that, not through words or politics, which are also valid and important, but through something more elemental, through, I guess, music and prayer. And it also felt important for me as somebody of Arabic heritage to bring an Arabic voice into the album. There's so much beautiful Jewish music and prayer on this record, and I wanted to offer something from the Arabic world, something peaceful, hopeful, rooted in that ancient sound and language. It's not about contrast, really. It's about harmony and about finding a shared truth that can hold all of it. And I think bringing this Arabic prayer to that, I hope, can do that. So being part of this collaboration has really opened something in me, and being part of this circle of artists all creating from a place of compassion has reminded me how powerful music can be as a bridge. From a personal perspective, it's helped me reconnect with my roots, to explore Arabic melody and prayer, and to bring that into my songwriting in a way that feels authentic. It's been quite healing, actually, finding a way to let my heritage and my artistry meet. For me, the phrase "each life sacred" is a reminder that no life is expendable. Every person, every child carries a light that's worth protecting. You know, watching what's unfolding in Gaza, in Sudan, it's impossible not to feel how fragile life can be, and yet how sacred it is. I guess through this project and in my art, I try to keep that awareness close, and to make music that honours that shared humanity that we all hold. So when I recorded the Arabic prayer, there was this immense stillness that came over me. It didn't really feel like I was performing. It felt more like being guided. I think the Arabic language has quite an ancient vibration to it, and singing it as a prayer felt like touching something quite old and pure, something that doesn't belong to one people but to all of us, and that feeling has really stayed with me. This project really, really matters because the world feels fractured, and compassion can get lost in all the noise. Each Life Sacred project is a reminder that I guess art can build bridges, that empathy is still possible. I love how it brings together voices from different backgrounds, Jewish, Arabic, Western, Eastern, and holds them all in one space of reverence. And to me, that's really extraordinarily powerful. It's a vision of what's still possible. When people listen to this prayer, I really hope they feel a kind of stillness and maybe a remembering, that moment where you stop and you realize how connected we all are. Yeah, the prayer isn't just for one group of people. It doesn't matter your heritage. It's for everyone. And I really hope it helps open hearts and reminds us in the simplest way that, we're all connected and we're all sacred, really.
I'm Matthew Barley. I'm a cellist, musician, composer, and very, very happy to be associated with Each Life Sacred. First and foremost, I've been inspired to take part in this project simply because of my dear friend Anouska and her extraordinary energy and passion and commitment to this unbelievably important cause. And I think, like so many millions of people around the world, there's been a sense of deep shock, sort of a disbelief of actually what's been unfolding down there in the Middle East, and especially focused towards the innocent children who have lost their lives and lost limbs and so on and so forth. And I think that has just provoked, as I said, this sort of sense of disbelief in all of us around the world. And also, there's a great sense of helplessness, I think, that so many of us feel. So presented with this opportunity to actually do something practical to help, I was just delighted to be able to join in. So the song Yura is one that's very, very precious to me. It was a gypsy song that I first came across when I was in my 20s, when I was studying music in Russia, in fact. And most people in Russia know this song, although I think the song originates from the Balkan area. I was making an arrangement of this for Vika and myself, and I loved the concept of two people playing exactly the same musical line and really, really working on it so hard with technical details so that you can almost not tell that it's two people playing at the same time. And because Vika and I, we both, obviously Vika is Russian, but I studied in Russia as well. So we have a very similar technique, a very similar way of getting the sound out of the instrument. So I knew we could kind of set about that in exactly the same way and achieve what I was after. And then just at the time I was making the arrangement, Vika's father died. So I called the piece Yura and sort of dedicated it to him. And in this recording, we're playing with a great jazz pianist called Julian Joseph, who's a very, very dear old friend of our family. And somehow the symbolism of two voices uniting to make one voice just felt exactly right for this particular project. Living in the age of information and the internet that we do, we're all so much more painfully aware of everything that happens around the world than we ever have been in human history before. What for me this is throwing up is trying to hold myself in a still place with integrity to who I am, and yet at the same time being able to feel the fact that on the one hand, on this earth, there are unimaginable atrocities and just impossible to imagine human suffering on such a great scale and unfairness and evil. And yet, on the other hand, in that same breath, to be able to hold the fact that there is unimaginable beauty, there is art, there is love, there are people who care, there is nature thriving in some places on this planet, and trying to hold those two feelings at the same time has become a sort of spiritual practice. I don't want to bury my head in the sand, turn my back on all the awful things that are happening in the world, but at the same time, I have a beautiful relationship with my wife. I have 3 amazing, healthy children. I have a granddaughter. I have a wonderful circle of friends. And from that part of my life, I get enormous joy and health and nourishment. And it feels to me that to live a life that is honest to myself and also takes in everything that happens around me, I have to be able to hold these two things at the same time. And I think art is where I do that. I'm a musician. I'm a musician to my very core, and my belief about music and art and why human beings practice music and art all around the world for as long as we know in human history is because it has that possibility to hold this great pain and this great joy at the same time. One other sort of philosophical musing about the nature of music is that I don't know whether this is a universal thing for everyone, but certainly for me, music gives me the opportunity to feel pain and suffering, but also for it not to be a negative thing. In sad music, there is this extraordinary possibility of feeling pain, but it feels good in a way. It feels whole. I don't know how to describe it. It's not a sort of masochistic thing, but it's almost like the saudade in Brazilian music, that you can feel that longing and it feels good at the same time. And that quality, I think, is in this piece in Europe.
I'm Naomi Greene. I'm a harpist, singer, and songwriter based in Paris. When Anouska asked me to be part of Each Life Sacred, I immediately said yes. First, because I trust her deeply as a friend. She has such a compassionate heart. But also because I was actually really grateful to be given the opportunity of putting my music in service of something bigger. I've been really affected by the horrific images that we're seeing from Palestine. And as an artist and as a human being, I often feel powerless in the face of such immense suffering. So Each Life Sacred offered me a way to respond with music and with joining a community that cares. This collaboration has reminded me that creativity can be an act of resistance and healing, and that community holds power. For me, the phrase Each Life Sacred is a statement of empathy. It means recognizing the value and the equality in every human being. It means no one's life is worth more than another's. My song on the album, Over the Hills, speaks to both the living and the dead. I wrote it originally for my grandmother when she passed. And when I recorded it, I really felt her presence in the room. The song became a bridge between worlds, between grief and healing. And it helped me through my own mourning. I hope that it can help other people through theirs. This project matters now because our collective heart is breaking and there's so much horror, so much numbness. And this album is an invitation to feel, to turn grief into care, and to remember that community can hold us even in dark times. When people listen to my song Over the Hills, I hope that it can bring some stillness, some healing that they can drop into the heart space and maybe reconnect with those that they've lost. It's about remembering and sending love from this side of the bridge.
This is Johnny Flynn. The prospect of coming together with artists and musicians and using our stories and our songs to connect and to feel the connections of humanity through singing, through sharing, and through praying feels really important, and about the most important thing that I can contribute to a sense of injustice and shame on the broader part of humanity that isn't honouring each sacred life. So this feels like the least that I could do, and to use my songs in this way. And there are terrible things happening in the world, and we often feel powerless, but hearing somebody's song or story and connecting to our humanity in this way is a comfort and a way of raising awareness and a feeling of solidarity. So I'm proud to be a part of this.
My name's Nick Barbachano, and I'm a musician. Phrase "each life sacred" means exactly what it says to me, that each life on this planet is sacred, no matter political opinions, race, religion, culture. When people listen to my song, I always hope that it puts them in touch with that wonderful beauty of children, to walk through this life with that intention to support the children who will grow up to support the next generation of children, and that this song will also help people connect with their own inner child and that sense of beauty and wonder of what it is to be a child and to receive life through untainted eyes, and just to receive and witness the beauty of creation.
Your love, rain, your love, child of the stars, child of the earth, child of the sun, the gift of your birth, child of this land, of our mother earth, child of the moon, of this universe. Na-na, 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 hey. Na-na, 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 hey.
I'm Olivia Fern, and I'm an alternative folk singer-songwriter. When Charlotte Mabon reached out to me about being part of this fundraiser album, there was really no question for me as to whether I would say yes or not. You know, as a mother myself and as a human being, this cause is so close to my heart. It's been so devastating to watch the unfolding events in Gaza over the past 2 years, and feeling so helpless as to how to help, as I'm sure everyone listening to this can relate. And so if you feel like you have the resources to contribute to this fundraiser, please do so. War Child is an incredible charity doing extraordinary work helping the most vulnerable people, the children who have been so sadly caught in the crossfire of this conflict. So the song that I chose to offer for this fundraiser album is called In the End. It poses that question of what really matters in life. You know, when we get to the end of our lives and we look back, what are the things that will truly matter? And I hope that this song gives the listener an opportunity to reflect on that, you know, amongst the busyness of life. And we all know how easy it is to get caught up in things that ultimately don't matter so much. And so I hope that this song can give a moment of reflection on what really matters in the end.
My name is Yakov Darling Khan. I'm a husband, a father, the co-founder of Movement Medicine, and the author of Jaguar in the Body, Butterfly in the Heart. Throughout this whole war between Palestine and Israel, I have been saying the prayer for the dead every morning. So to have an opportunity to share that as part of a wider prayer for peace and for an end to war has been like a road opening in front of me that I was invited to walk down. Prayers are sometimes very personal, but it's even better when a prayer can become collective and be heard. Ever since I was a really young boy, I remember my dream world as a child was much more real to me than my waking world. So I couldn't wait to get to bed because nighttime was an adventure. It was real. It was what I felt safe with, what I felt connected to. And always as I was falling asleep, I was expanding from myself to my bedroom, to my family, to the street I lived on and the people there, to the town and the people, to the county, to the country, to the continent, to the world. The prayer, each life is sacred, has been with me since as long as I can remember. So to join in a project with that name has been a continuation of that prayer. My whole professional life is dedicated to that concept that each life is sacred. And not just that, but each human being has something of unique value to offer. I had the great blessing of working with our son, Ruben, in his studio early in the morning at a very busy time, and for him and Susanna with her drum and myself to make the time to create this recording of this prayer was a very beautiful family moment. It really helped me to massively appreciate how privileged we are. And I am very grateful for my privilege, and I feel that privilege is a blessing rather than a curse, and to use that privilege well and to honor the heart and the love and the goodness in our family, and as a family to create something has been really beautiful. The moment when we recorded this prayer, there was no ceasefire in place. All the people who've been calling for an end to that war, I hope those same people will go on calling and protesting for an end to the wars in the Congo and Sudan and all the places, Myanmar, where war still rages and children are still suffering. So at a time when people might kind of go, oh, well, that's over, to bring out a project that says, this is just a beginning. It always is. For us to stand up together and stand for peace. And of course, peace begins in our own hearts. To offer that with such wonderful artists and songs that are prayers, I feel is a reminder that there is work to do, enormous amount of work for us to be proud of what we pass on to our descendants. The prayer for the dead in Hebrew is actually a celebration of the sanctity of life. And I hope that people feel that in the ancient Hebrew words and that melody and the rhythm of the drums. And I hope it touches them and they recognize that Judaism and Israel are not the same thing, that Hebrew is a beautiful old language, and that prayers shared in many languages from many traditions and cultures is a really important celebration of the diversity of ways of being and living and praying in this world.
My name is Anika Nixdorf. I am a multidisciplinary artist based in Devon in the UK. And I was very honoured to be asked to co-create the artwork for Each Life Sacred alongside Anouska Beckwith. I was very moved by the project because it felt like an opportunity to use art as a way to put into action my core beliefs and to contribute to something that I think have a really positive impact. I've been feeling mixtures of hopelessness and helplessness in the face of everything that's going on in the world, which I feel like is just amplifying in the last few years. And I really believe that art is one of the ways through, and that the artists of our time are the people that can envision a better future. I suppose I, on some level, would like to take action in that direction as well, to feel that responsibility as an artist, to create things that I feel like are working towards a more positive future, and a future that I would love to see. So I feel like the piece, which was envisioned by Anouska, of the hands holding a light, a child's hands and an adult's hands, really resonate with the message of Each Life Sacred. Because on some level, as the adults of this world, we also have a responsibility towards the coming generations, who are the ones that will hold the weight of the impact that is happening now. On some level, the symbolism of this artwork, I hope, can be, when viewed, a shining light of hope in whatever big or small way for the individual that sees it. The phrase "each life sacred" in itself holds such a beautiful message, because I on a personal level really believe that each life, including the more than human, the life, the environment, the nature that is all around us, animals, plants, everything that holds a sacredness, and including humans. What I find really important is that when we remember that something is sacred, we look after it, because we take care of the things that are sacred to us. And for me, in this time, it's a time to really remember that life itself is sacred, and each life all around us needs to be taken care of, and we need to take care of each other.
My name is Laura Noah, and I'm a medicine musician and music producer. Each life sacred means to me a recognition that this is one life, one beingness, one awareness, and that we really are one awareness, and all this is happening within us. And the violence that's happening in Gaza, that the families there are enduring, basically a hell realm. And also in other parts of the world, in Sudan, that there isn't over there, per se, that once that recognition, one recognizes that we are the same, then we can't just close our eyes or look away anymore, because it is us that's being bombed, or it's all of our children, all of our families. And that instills a motivation to act, to make art, to whatever the million ways of activism that can be. This song was inspired by just that, by the practice of Tonglen, which is a Tibetan Buddhist practice, which involves breathing in, essentially breathing in the suffering of others and transmuting it through the alchemy of our vessels, of our awareness, and breathing out a purified quality of that. So even that form of meditation is activism. I feel particularly inspired to share art as activism because art reflects our culture, art reflects and informs where we're at, like what's this collective dream that we're co-creating together. Art can both reflect and hold up a mirror to that and also ignite the imagination, the possibilities of the sacred world we know is possible.
Breathe in humanity, breathe out deep peace. My eyes are wide open to every precious being, feeling you through me as a transparent community. My inner unrest mirrored across the seas. No violence lives there that doesn't live within me. This isn't any war, same dream. We take responsibility. My eyes stay open for every child who goes hungry. Compassion and devotion, returning eternally, till every sentient being may rest peacefully and free. Breathe in humanity, breathe out harmony. Breathe in humanity, breathe out opportunity. To come to terms with reality. Our reality is a waking dream. Our planet is a dreaming jewel vibrating with ancient memories. Our planet is a great grandmother seeding possibilities. The code keepers and Pleiadian arc, the Buddhic planes and the stellar choir, guardians of the harmonic breath, stellar wheels untouched by death. May the light dawn from the crowns down to our feet so that we may rest now. Rest into humility, embrace our humanity. Rest down now as the ground with compassion and capacity. Your grief is not separate from the galaxies. The dream of separation wakes with birth of unity. We are not on the earth, we are the earth. We are not on the earth, we are the earth. In the dawning of a planetary consciousness, tender splendence, age of Aquarius. Sitting as a mountain, safe stability.
I'm Petra Palumbo, a homeware designer. I'm Lebanese on my mother's side, and my family and friends live in Beirut. So what's been happening and what continues to happen in Palestine feels very close to home. In many ways, the horrors there have also touched Lebanon, the displacement, the destruction, the shared grief that ripples across generations. Over the last 2 years, I've joined nearly every national march in London and smaller ones in Inverness with my girls, who I believe must grow up within this movement for justice and equality, learning never to stay silent in the face of oppression and to use their privilege to stand up for what's right. These gatherings are filled with compassion, love, and unity. Never once have I seen hate or felt unsafe, only humanity standing together for peace. That same sense of shared humanity is what moved me to offer my artwork to Each Life Sacred, a project that honors every life lost and reaffirms the dignity behind the headlines. I love my friend Anouska, who invited me to take part. Her vision and heart touches me deeply. I contributed a hand-painted jug and crystal tumblers decorated with watermelons and poppies. The watermelon, a symbol of Palestinian resistance and identity, and the poppy, their national flower, representing remembrance and resilience. These motifs felt like the right language through which to express solidarity. Small, handmade gestures of hope standing for the endurance of a people who refuse to be forgotten. I believe beauty and justice can and must coexist. Through art, we can invest in education, cultural understanding, and building bridges so that empathy replaces fear and connection triumphs over division. We must strive for a brighter future, one where dehumanizing or erasing an entire people is never normalized and where every life is treated as sacred. A brighter future is possible. We just collectively need to continue to fight for it and raise our children to do so too.
Leor here from Ripples Collective. We're a group of Palestinians and Israelis working together to create a ritual performance. We call it a collective liberation ritual,
We've all journeyed with medicines. Most of us journey together. And a lot of the performance is a way to translate our insights, our love, our emotions, our visions, our hopes, our yearnings into something that we can bring the audience closer to. So we performed in Medicine Festival, in other places. And in a way, we're trying to create this mixture of a ritual, a performance, a workshop, a grief ceremony with music, with psychedelic storytelling of the psychopolitical mind, of shared process, bringing the audience into participatory process. And it's a creation that we've been working on in the last year that is very powerful and profound and meaningful to us. And also this creation of working Palestinians and Israelis and trying to find our shared message and to be public facing about this is also not an easy task. So while we love each other very much and have a strong bond, also there's frictions, and we see the friction as a creative force. So we, in a way, we are operating somewhere between the wish for peace and harmony, but also the wish for liberation of Palestinians, for the end of oppression, occupation, and so on. So we see those needs for harmony, love, kind of those softer things that they need to be together with the fire of activism, peace activism, co-resistance, and so on. So in our art, which is this performance, we try to bring this fusion of harmony and liberation. And the music is one way of doing that. So the music is a way to share, bring closer, move people. In our performance, we sing in Hebrew and Arabic, in English and Yiddish, fusing the languages together. It is a joy to do this together. It's very meaningful for all of us. We are 7, and it's to see the feedback and what it means to other people encourage us very much. So in times where there's a lot of tension in the air, it seems like we are providing some answer to someone and some people. And we wish to ignite a vision in which a resistance is something that is done together. The way for peace is also the way for liberation. They're together. And there's a sense of solidarity. We create this cultural image, and music helps us to create this cultural image. It incites people's imagination by listening to the music, by seeing how we relate to each other, by listening and feeling our stories, by the weaving of their own process with our process. So this ritual performance is the creation that allows us to do this. We don't have much of our own original music as a collective. We bring music of the individuals or pairs from the collective or people from our ecosystem in Palestine and Israel. And this is the music we bring into our performance. Whenever the world is moving through whatever the pains and the grief and the violence that we are now suffering from, I wish there will be a breakthrough to a better world and to get us out of this. And I see art, culture, musicians are in the front lines of cultural change, and there's a lot of power in music to bring change and move people into different directions.
My name is Suleiman Khatib. I'm a Palestinian, part of the Rebels Collective, which actually using different technique to bring people together, including music, storytelling, grief, and different ritual, specifically ritual around collective liberation. This is combined by Israeli and Palestinian activists come together to find another way for our cause. It makes a lot of difference. The impact of this is really big on people, actually, on ourselves as well. combining the inner work and the outer work in order to address the collective and individual trauma and trauma healing. And also, this is, like bringing the collective liberation and the free the oppressed and the oppressor from intellectual concepts into the heart and into the soul. And basically, every life is really sacred, and that's not obvious, unfortunately, because of the dehumanization. So mainly is really what we do, aim to humanize each other and come as fully truth as we are, and with a holistic approach of different narrative. It's not the easiest way and approach, but it is the way forward for a different world that we want to see, that more free and just world, not just for Palestinians and Israelis, but for the world as well.
It feels really special, actually, to be sitting here talking about this project, because from the beginning, we've been feeling into our hearts and feeling into our bellies and just doing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And with the gathering of the people, it's all just felt really good, really expanding. But despite the fact that it was born from this song, which is a prayer, there is something stabilizing and grounding and opening to actually sit here and talk about it and go, oh, okay, this is actually what we're doing. And to talk about it, it's like part of the unfolding. And so I'm just really grateful. I'm really grateful that we've had this moment and this time to connect and to really land. Yeah, this is the project. This is the intention. Yeah, so I feel like there's an element of this which is us also on a road of discovery. And the more we do, the more it unfolds, the more it flowers, the more people want to be involved. We're holding space and seeing for ourselves what's happening, rooting it in ourselves, and also just opening up to what this might become.
My final thing to say would be that anybody listening who feels called to share, to stand in solidarity with us, to be part of the ripple that we wish to create, please talk about these subjects with your friends, your family, say a prayer, join a protest, divest, and let's make a more beautiful world together.
Thank you for listening. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode and it has sparked some inspiration and creativity in you. As always, you can find links to everything we mention in this episode, download our book, join our experiences, and discover so much more over on allthatweare.org. We give space to our guests to share their perspective without debating it or fact-checking, as this approach allows for deep, unedited conversations from the heart. We trust your discernment and wisdom to take what is useful and challenge what isn't in your own understanding. We offer spaces for discussion and integration in our membership community, which we would love for you to join. We don't believe in selling you things you don't need through this podcast. And so it's made possible with you, our beautiful community. If you loved this and would like to connect more deeply with us, please join our membership, retreats, and experiences. Share the episode with your friends and do drop us a note from time to time. Please hit subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen so that others can find us. This podcast is made by an all-female global team. All That We Are celebrates all that we are already and the untapped potential that lives inside us. It invites the full power of the more than human world, nature, the unseen, our ancestors, and our future generations. It reminds us that we never exist in silos through borders, timelines, or polarity. That in each and every moment, all that we are is here.